what most of you came here for. Let's talk about an ML5 tier list. Now we're going to go over just the ones for the headhunt because a lot of people have waited. A lot of people were waiting for the balance patch update to be announced. And it's not been announced today. So one of two things has happened, right? They are either going back to the old rotation, which was where they announced the balance patch 2 weeks before it goes live, which would mean it'll be announced this coming Friday. They had gone to a 4-week prior announcement. My understanding was to give to give them time to gauge the community's response and make changes. I don't know if the smooth brain people that got Flan's balance patch canned has made them change their mind and go back to the old method of just a 2-week notice so that they don't have time to undo things that they want to do and we don't have another Flan situation. Or it's possible we just aren't getting a balance patch this year. They might just be skipping it. They changed RTA season significantly. They moved it 2 weeks up. Maybe they're moving the balance patch back. We don't know. The bottom line is if you're saving your headhunt for news about what the balance patch is going to look like, there's still several days, weeks even, left in the headhunt, and we should get a balance patch prior to the headhunt. If you're playing the long game and you want to wait until this coming Friday to see if there's a balance patch, to see if it impacts your choices, you do you. If you want to lock it in, that's fine. I'm going to build this tier list based on what we know now. The last tier list I put up, it wasn't that long ago, but it was fresh and raw right off of the last balance patch we had, and the dust hadn't quite settled. We had a lot of assumptions in there, and only a small amount of time to kind of wrap our brains around what the meta was going to look like with all these changes. And now we kind of know, and it's not changed a lot of things, but it's changed a few things. So let's go over these really quick. I'm breaking these down into meta, which means these are units you're commonly going to pick in RTA, or they have good, solid uses in the game. There's something you're probably going to use at least a couple times a week, right? And then there's our solid use. These are really good filler units. They're good to have on the team. They're not like first pickable in RTA. They're not super giga strong, but they are reliable, solid units, and nobody is sad that they have these on their account. And then we're going to have our niche pick. These are units that only work in very specific situations. They only exist to counter this unit. They only work if you have that unit. They only work if you play a certain way. And then there's bad, right? I don't think this needs to be explained. These are units that if they're not on the next balance patch, they're pretty to have in your lobby, but they aren't really a good unit. And that doesn't mean you can't force it. Through gear, almost anything is possible. And if you love a unit, you can find a way to make it work. That's great. But pound for pound, there are just better places to put your gear than units in this column. So we're going to start with Abyssal Yufine. Abyssal Yufine used to be the meta, but she's fallen back quite a bit with all of the counters that have come out now. She's just a solid pick. She is great on defense for Guild Wars Arena. She is solid in PvE. She can but she can be a part of some full auto teams and labyrinths. She's really good in Tower of Automation. But when it comes to RTA, she's kind of a last pick. She's the enemy just drafted in a certain way where you can put her in the very end and make some use of her, but pound for pound she doesn't work out as well in a world of Harsettis and Ilynavs and Morts just shutting all the aspects of her broken kit down. Ainz will go and you can't get, and even if you could, he's bad. He needs a buff desperately. Ambitious Tywin is one of, if not the strongest knights in the game. We're in a debuff meta and somebody that constantly can not only help you remove debuffs, but also apply them. He's got control in his stuns. He can ignore yards. He's a range. He's got defense breaks. He can wear Arius and help with mitigation. Pound for pound, he's one of the best RTA knights out there. Outside of RTA, he doesn't have a lot of roles. There are some Abyss floors where his defense break and his ability to cleanse debuffs are really nice, but those instances are few and far between. This is a unit you only really care about if you do PvP. If you don't do PvP, if you don't do RTA, he falls further down the list for you. Apocalypse Ravi, okay, hear me out. She's kind of a niche pick, and that niche is you just don't know what to draft. You're stun locked, you're looking at all of the stuff the enemy has picked, and you're watching the timer count down and you can't figure out what to pick. You slam Apoc Ravi because she fits in pretty much any draft. Anchor for cleave, Razor for sustain, HP scaler for long drawn out fights. solid nuker with her soul burn. That's one for standard fights. She does everything pretty well. And a lot of people say she's useless, she's off the meta. She always shows up the last few days of RTA. Never count a Ravi out. Arbiter Vildred is just a solid pick. After his buffs, he's giga damage, and he's also really good in PvE as a clear unit on a lot of floors. If you do not have this guy as your rep hero, if you own him and he's not currently not your rep hero but your friend hero, you can make your rep hero anything you want, but make this your main friend hero, because when people are out there trying to clear story and they want to take 4 friendship units and use your friendship hero to clear, they want this guy. Okay, so have him on the team. But surprisingly good damage in RTA, very good for a full auto quick battle team in arena. The buff to Arby went really well. Archdemon Shadow, I wanted to say she's niche, but she's just bad, guys. I'm sorry. There are so few situations where you would pick her over another unit. She really needs a little bit of a buff. Her 2020 kit's very dated, and it needs something to kick her up a notch, which is crazy because she used to run people over in RTA. But who cares about a single target seal when you have an AoE seal? And the countdown timer she puts you on before she nukes things just doesn't work like it used to. Architect Laika is very niche. And that niche is the opponent doesn't have Ilynav, and you're able to go first. So they don't have Ilynav, and they don't have Harsetti. She's in a same grouping with Straze, right? The two of them are very difficult to use. I will put Straze a little bit ahead of Architect Laika simply because Straze at least has some outside of RTA uses for being a guaranteed no-fail one-shot on Astromancer 13 hunt. You can also, through better gear, force him to be a one-shot unit for pretty much all of the hunts, but A13 is the one that's the easiest gear-wise, the most accessible. The gear you would need to put on him to one-shot all of the other hunts, you may as well just farm Rift. So just a tough unit to use in this day and age where penetration gets mitigated so heavily by Ilynav. Astromancer Elena is bad. She used to have a niche use in stopping counters and helping standard, like, Ran, Cleaves kind of anchor, but now you just use Mort. He's a better anchor for that, and those style of cleaves are very few and far between. She really needs a kit change to not just be fundamentally worse than a 4-star or than a RGB unit. Belian is one of the better niche units, and her niche is you don't want your enemy to have souls. You put her on the team, the enemy doesn't have souls. I mean, Frida excluded, but she has got a lot of builds. If you've got 3F, if you got the artifact 3F, you could move her up, because counter Belian on 3F is actually a pretty decent damage dealer's place. But you can build her on injury, you can build her on counter, you can build her on speed, you can put her on a protection set, you can run her Arius, you can run her Sigurds, you can run her 3F. There's a lot of different builds. So, but her evergreen nature of her is that she will stop souls on your enemy team, and that's always going to be useful somewhere. Blood Moon Haste is one of the best units in the game. A lot of people felt this guy lost a lot of clout due to units like Harsetti, stopping his counters and healing. Units like Empyrean Ilynav, making his S3 hit like a wet noodle and not let him bring things back to life. But even through all of that, his kit is so strong that I think it warrants him a place in the S tier. You will still see him used in modern day. He does have PvE uses in the sense that, like, you're trying a hard Abyss floor or you're trying to beat a boss that's really difficult. Having an offensive Soul Weaver who can wear Soul Weaver artifacts and bring your entire team back to life when shit hits the fan is really nice to have on your team. Briar Witch Iseria, with units like Ruele and Holy Sack being so insanely powerful, I think there's no world where Briar Iseria isn't an S tier unit. She is giga solid. I would even put her ahead of Haste right now. Closer Charles, I mean, you can just take off the C, right? Just take off the C, make him Loser Charles. Because this guy only has one use in the game right now, and that's being part of an A13 one-shot team. He is a very
There should be a tier or unavailable units.
You want a tier for unavailable units? Fine. There you go. There were some places where Charles could be used in a special style of cleave back in the day, but pound for pound, he's just too hard to gear, and that kind of cleave doesn't work anymore. Commander Pavel is incredibly niche and is chilling out right here beside Straze and Laika. His niche is as a part of a cleave support team, and with units that have come out, the penetration hit from Ilynav, how badly he gets punished by counterattacks is just not a lot of places you can run Pavel in RTA. He's more of a Guild War and Arena unit than an RTA unit. If you get Commander Pavel cleaved in late 2024, you drafted very badly. Conqueror Lilias is still an incredibly strong unit. She's got uses in PvP as well as PvE. She's part of one of the only 100% win rate Wyvern 13 one-shot teams out there. Her dual attack capabilities makes her really, really strong in a lot of PvE events. She's not really used in any of the repetitive PvE like Labyrinth or Hunts, other than Wyvern, of course. But having the ability to give vigor to your team and to dual attack, you will find uses for her outside of RTA. Other than that, she's a Guild War and RTA unit. Even though C Poly has stolen much of her thunder, she still has one of the higher pick win rate ratios out there. So don't count Conqueror Lilias out. She's very, very solid. Dark Corvus has a very, very small niche, and that niche is he kills things in Guild Wars. And I'm going to tell you what, he doesn't. Not really. Not anymore. Things are so tanky, he doesn't always kill. And there's so much injury out there. He's hard to pick. It's hard to find fights anymore that don't have injury on them. I really think Dark Corvus needs a little something to be better again. He is not the, if you want to win Guild Wars, you just pick Dark Corvus unit anymore. He will still win a lot of Guild War fights, but not like he used to. He's not the I win button he used to be, and I think he needs something to be better. He needs immunity to injury or something. Death Dealer Ray is probably one of, if not the strongest units in the game. Now, yes, Schneel has moved him from being a first pick unit to being a 4-5 pick unit, but he will still win you fights. You've just got to make sure you don't slam him first. If you slam him in the first 3, you're going to eat a Schneel and you're going to lose. But if your opponent locks his 3 in first and it's not Schneel, then you can safely lock DDR into 3, 4, or 5 slot and still run people over. I still win plenty of fights with Death Dealer Ray. He's still really good in regular arena and in some Guild War fights. He's got no real uses outside of PvP, so he's less important to you. But we're in a world where everything is so giga tanky. Having a unit that lets everybody in your team become an injury unit is too good. So yeah, even with Schneel, yes, he is still S tier and near the top of S tier. Desert Jewel Basar is kind of niche. He would be higher, right? You think, oh my god, a fast Soul Weaver who can cleanse in a debuff meta, this guy's amazing. And he would be, except that he is just too soft. He's not quite fast enough, and if you make him fast enough, he doesn't have the ER, and if you make him fast enough with the ER, he's so fragile he can die too easily. He has still got some really good niche picks where he will win you a fight, but he is not the golden boy he used to be. Designer Lilibet is incredibly powerful. I think she's vying for the second place spot. I had her in A tier before, and this is one of those units that post-balance patch, we really saw how good she became. So I'm putting Designer Lilibet right at the top, like neck and neck with DDR. Her ability to reset, her ability to cleanse in a debuff heavy meta, her defense breaks on her S1, her tankiness, her damage, everything about this unit is so good now. Something you want on your team if you're playing RTA. Now, if you don't play RTA, she falls off a lot. She doesn't have a lot, if any, PvE uses at all. Dragonbride Senya would be, I would say, probably right about here if she was available on Headhunt. Not on Headhunt, I'm putting her up here. She is one of the strongest knights in the game. Probably the strongest damaged offensive knight in the game. Insane unit to have. Your opponent has to completely change the way they play based on who you have in the back row and where this unit is on the team. But unfortunately, she did not make the headhunt. She missed it by 16 days, which Sue will never stop complaining about. So unfortunately, I'm going to put her down here, not on the headhunt list, but remember that she would be near the top of the S tier. Dragon King Sharun, a lot of people argue with me saying she deserves to be solid tier, and I don't think she does. She's at the top of the niche tier. She is a good damage dealer, but she is a reactionary pick. Nobody leads with this unit. Nobody picks this unit unless they're reacting to specific debuffs. She is one of the soft counters to DDR, especially if Schneel is not an option. She pairs well with Schneel if the opponent picks DDR on 3 and you've only got 4 and 5 left and you need to make sure you double down to stop that DDR. You can pick Schneel and her and just run the enemy over. That's a great, powerful niche usage against one of the best units in the game. She also works pretty good against Mort and has some other strengths as well, but it's still reactionary. It's like you only pick her because the opponent picked 1 or 2 specific units. Otherwise, you don't ever reach for her. And that's kind of the very definition of niche, but she's at the very, very top of it. Empyrean Ilynav would be number 1. Literally. She's the best RTA unit to have in the game. She is on every guild or every arena defense. Go look at arena and find a team that doesn't have. If you find a team that doesn't have Empyrean Ilynav on its defense, you have found a player in Epic 7 who's not yet pulled Empyrean Ilynav. She is on, I would dare say, the majority of Guild War defenses, and is just one of, if not the strongest, most first picked units in RTA. Unfortunately, this number 1 unit in the game did not make the headhunt, so you cannot draft her. She's down here. Eternal Wanderer Ludwig is niche in the same way that Commander Pavel is niche. Now, maybe a little less niche than Commander Pavel. Ludwig doesn't suffer a lot of the issues that Commander Pavel does, but he still suffers from his S3 being penetration dependent, and you lose that with Ilynav on the team. He still suffers from counterattacks getting him murdered, so you have to deal with Mort and all the counter units being on the team. He's fragile. You've got to have souls, so he's countered by Belian. You've got to be able to CR push-ups, so he's countered by Politis and Yufine. You got to make sure the people that push him up don't get him killed, so you've got to make sure that the people who can push him up aren't going to activate Selene. He's got so many counters that what carried me deep into champs last season, Ludwig Cleave, is so hard to do in RTA that he is really more of a Guild War unit now. Much like Commander Pavel, he's kind of a Guild War unit. Very, very difficult to use anywhere else. Except, even in arena, I'm finding that green Ludwig is more stable than Wanderer Ludwig is. So, though he is one of the easiest introductions into Cleave, his style of Cleave is kind of in the shitter, and we've got to wait for the cyclical nature of Epic 7 to come around again, to where units come out that let his style of Cleave be good again. Right now, not so much. So, I'm going to put him in niche because it's an older style of Cleave. Faithless Lidica. Okay. This one, I'm going to give the same speech I gave last time on Faithless Lidica. She is a solid tier unit if you have the gear to build her. And I would wager that 99% of Epic 7 doesn't have the gear to build Faithless Lidica. And the 1% that do have the gear to build Faithless Lidica properly won't be looking at a tier list for advice. So I'm putting her down here in niche, and her niche is you need to be a 1%er. Her niche is if you've got the gear to build her, you're going to use her like crazy. She's going to run people over, but she's one of those few units, like a lot of units, right? If you don't have the gear to build an Emperor A Ravi, that's okay. You still have a Champ A Ravi. You still have a Masters A Ravi. If you don't have the gear to build a Legend Arby, that's okay. You still have a Champ Arby or a Masters Arby. But if you don't have the gear to build an Emperor or Legend Faithless Lidica, then you have a dead unit. There's no such thing as a Champ tier or Masters tier Faithless Lidica. She takes that insane level of gear. Yeah, if she gets an EE, a speed-based EE, that could change things for her. But right now, just too tough to build. Fallen Cecilia. Okay, this is going to sound weird, guys. Fallen Cecilia is really solid at doing her job. The problem is there are a lot of units that do her job better than her. It's not that she's bad, right? She's not bad. It's just everyone else is better. My favorite way to describe it, right, is she's not unemployed because she's not good at her job. She's unemployed because everyone else is more qualified for, and she can't find a job. Her market is saturated, right? It's not like, say, where is she? Say, here's Operator Sigurd, right? Operator Sigurd doesn't have a job because she's fundamentally bad at her job. Fallen Cecilia is good at her job. She just doesn't have a job because there's no jobs left for her. She's constantly going out for interviews and she's not getting called back because other knights are just better at it. So, Operator Sigurd needs a buff because she's just a terrible unit. I'm going to put her down here, by the way. We'll come back to Operator Sigurd in a minute. But Fallen Cecilia, she's bad because everyone else is so good. So, she's in kind of a weird place where I don't really know where to put her. She is a solid knight. She does everything the same that she did back when she was a great disaster unit. She was the first unit to be described as a great disaster for the game. If you didn't have Fallen Cecilia, you didn't get to play RTA. Everyone else was just nowhere near as good as she is. But we've gotten so many units who do what she does, but better, who are better mitigation knights, who are better damage knights. She just isn't good enough. She needs to go and be re-educated. What happened to Last Rider Crow would have been perfect for Fallen Cecilia, right? Crow was in the same situation. Last Rider Crow was not very good. He was still great at his job, the same as he was when he was top of the Golden Boy meta, but other knights just did everything better. So they changed his kit a little bit. They added a couple things to his kit, and suddenly he is back in the game. They need to do that for Fallen Cecilia. They don't need to make her stronger at what she already does. They just need to toss her something, either via an EE or a LRK style buff to bring her back, but not just, if they just make her a better mitigator, make her bigger barriers and stuff, it's just going to be oppressive and boring. So right now she's in the bad column, not because she's bad, but just because if you got resumes from all the knights in the game, you're not taking CCs. Not right now. Harsetti's a weird one, right? Right now Harsetti is top of the freaking meta, but give it a couple of weeks and a cookie baking child's gonna come out that's gonna make your busty waifu dami mommy elf feel just absolutely garbage can useless. All those Harsetti defenses you're seeing in Arena, they'll be gone in a couple of weeks. Thank God. So, anyway, you don't have to make that decision of is she going to survive the Tenya meta or not. She is not on the headhunt. If she was, I would probably slap her right here in between these two units. Last Rider Crow used to be in the same situation as Fallen Cecilia, right? Last Rider Crow was good at his job, but everyone else was better. He got this buff. He got the skill reset buff, and suddenly he is one of the best units in the game. Now, I did have him here under the solid tier before, but a unit came out that a lot of people are still trying to convince me isn't very good, right? And that's Hellion Lua. With Hellion Lua on the team, LRK shoots near the top of the list. These two together are insane. There's so much AoE in the game right now that he constantly gets triggered. Having barriers, having immunity is so good. But if you have Hellion Lua, you put Hellion Lua on 3, you put LRK on 2, and you just run people over. But without Hellion Lua, I still think he is just solid tier. He is one of the better knights in the game. God, I don't know. Is he meta? Is he meta? I think he might be, guys. I'm going to put him up here for now and think about it, right? He is on just about every other arena defense. He's really good there. I'm not sure if Child Senya is going to drag him back down with people maybe moving away from AoE units and into single target units. You know what? Screw it. I'm leaving him there. He is currently a meta unit. Numbers don't lie. He is on just about every other offense that I see played in RTA. So I'm leaving them up. I'm leaving them up top side. Lua is a weird one. Lua, if you have the gear, she is a meta unit. If you don't have the gear, she's kind of hard to play. She reminds me a little bit of Faithless Lidica, right? Without the right gear, she's not really playable. The difference is the quality of gear she takes is nowhere near the quality gear Faithless Lidica takes, but she still is a gear-dependent unit. So if you have the gear, she's up here. If you don't have the gear, she's probably closer to the bottom of solid, but you don't have to think about her because she is not pickable in Headhunt. So we can move her down. Oh, Judge Kisei, surprisingly solid. She much like Faithless Lidica, she takes really good gear, but not as good. If you build her well, she will surprise you. She's got very good win rates. She's got defense breaks, skill nulls, blinds. There's a lot in her kit that's really nice. If you can keep her alive into a fight, she will run people over. Much like Arby, she is just a very strong AoE DPS unit. Give her a try. Even if you have to protect her with a revive unit, you'll be surprised how well she wins fights. Lionheart Cermia used to be a solid unit. Oh God, forgive me, girl. Is she even niche? Is she even niche anymore? Her niche is counters and everything's shutting down counters, and even when things counter, she's just not bringing enough to the table. Things are too tanky. Things punish you for AoEs. I think she might need a buff, guys. I think she needs a buff. I talked to Sue, who likes Lionheart Cermia more than just about any unit in the game. And he tried to force her, and even into situations that were perfect for her. In situations where RNG went in his favor, he still got bodied trying to use this unit. It's crazy. It shouldn't be like that. Not Cermia. Not like this, guys. She does have some PvE applications. You legitimately can practically one-man. You can practically solo Katie's. It takes a while, and you need some ER on her. Ideally, you run her with Christie to get the ER, and you put her on Sigurd's Scythe, and you put her in the back, and you can run 2 friendship units, and you can quick battle friendship farm Katie's. But that's kind of a flex. There's just better teams if you want to farm Katie's, but you can do it. She's really, really good into Katie's. Little Queen Charlotte is a solid damage-dealing unit. Some people are going to say, oh, well, she's niche because you go into dark units. That's not really niche, guys. That's an entire 40% of what you fight in Arena, right? In RTA, 40%'s light, 40%'s dark, and the remaining 20% is a spattering of RGB. You're not going to get into a fight where there's not going to be a dark unit on the team somewhere unless you pick her early. She's really good nuclear unit. She's got Extinction, which is important. I'm sure people are going to say, well, what about Auden? Shouldn't she get a buff because of Auden? And I think she should. And I did put her down in the needs a buff column last time, and I think I was being a little harsh on her. I think I was being a little bit harsh on her before because, yeah, she does need a buff, but one thing that she's got that Auden doesn't have is Extinction, and in a world of Ruels, being able to extinct a dark threat's really, really nice. Better than you'd expect. I think she's solid. Bottom of solid, top of niche. The only thing keeping her from being in niche is that there's so damn many darks. Lone Crescent Bellona is another solid unit. She's picked a little bit less often now, but is still a pretty good carry for a lot of fights. You will be able to do a lot of PvE with her. She's one of the best units for a full auto Nightmare Queen team. Solid damage, lots of clapbacks that aren't stopped by Mort's anti-counter. Not the threat she used to be, but still, I think if somebody said, think of a solid Epic 7 unit that's, you know, good in multiple spots on the game, but not insanely broken, Bellona is kind of what jumps right to my mind. Okay, so Maid Chloe's benefits are she AoE cleanses your entire team, gives them all attack buff, gives them all the ability to come back to life, has a, is it 60 or 75% chance to stun? She has a really high percent chance to stun with her S1. I think it's 60. Passively heals just by existing. Even if she's stunned, when her turn cycles through, your whole team still gets passive heals. I I don't see how anybody could say that kind of a kit is not good. She also gives effect resistance as an imprint, which is huge if you're trying to build a resist team. She is overshadowed by how good Ruele is right now as a Razor, and how she can be focused and killed pretty easily. I think she is a real solid unit for a 4th, 5th pick when you just need some survivability. I think, yeah, Naoda said it best. Her biggest issue is she's got really, really long cooldowns, and she doesn't do a lot in between her cooldowns. So, I don't know, maybe an EE that reduces her cooldown duration and she'd be meta again, but right now, bottom end of solid units. Outside of RTA, being able to cleanse, bring everyone back to life. I mean, this is an Abyss unit's dream. Abyss clear dream. She's really, really good in Abyss, and that's about it. Oh, martial artist Ken. Man, have you ever seen a unit that goes from here to here to here to here to back up again? This guy bounces around depending on the meta. And right now we're in a meta where crits aren't necessary and counters are less and less viable, right? He counterattacks when a crit happens, and we got so many things that shut down counters and so many things that do damage without critting. Little bit harder of a unit to use. His niche pick is all of the things that stop him from working don't exist, then he is a meta pick. But he is shut down by so many things. Shut down his mechanics. He is harder to thread the needle in, and if you pick him, it is in the most niche of situations. Mediator Kawerik, still one of the most important units in the game. An AoE cleanse, strip on his S2, barriers on an S2, immortality. You can soul burn it for a 3-turn immortality, or not immortality, immunity. CR pushing on his S1. He's a warrior, so you can wear warrior artifacts. The guy is fierce. He is the reason that we didn't place Lilibet as high before, because we thought, why would you ever pick Lilibet when you could just pick Kawerik or Laika? Well, now we know. But he is still a very good, solid pick. We're going to slide him right about there. If you're in a world of debuffers, a guy that cleanses and cannot be held down. If you put Sweet Miracle on him, even Mort can't keep him afraid. Really, really solid pick. Landy used to run the meta. She used to be the #1 list. She was the Harsetti of last year. This time last year, all we did was cry about Landy. We'd watch RTA matches and say, well, look at Landy doing Landy things, right? She was the shoe of 2023. She was the unit that was just like, hey, if you touch something, Landy's going to do Landy things and end the fight. Well, now we've got anti-counter. Now her biggest things were she would counter into salvo, and that was a problem. And then her other big thing was eventually you were on a timer, because once she threw the boat, you were done. Well, now we got things that stop the counter, and now we got Ilynav, who stops the boat. And suddenly Landy is not doing very much anymore. She is the most fundamentally niche unit out there. She's not even solid. You've got to pick her into situations like Ken, where everything on the board is not countering her. Now, unlike Ken, Landy has tons of uses in PvE, from Nightmare Raid to Abyss Floors, to soloing the Tower of Automation, but you're gonna have a harder time picking her into RTA, except in 4-5, except in niche situations. Oh, Luna. AoE Seal is still insane, and putting her on immunity and not being able to debuff her is still insane. She would still be at or near the top of the S tier, one of the most used units in the game with one of the highest win rates. But you don't have to think about this girl because she's not on the headhunt, so we'll slap her right down here just behind Ilynav. I'm trying to keep these in order, left to right. Pirate Captain Flan used to be pretty solid, but the meta's shifted enough where she's fallen off quite a bit. She had a chance, right? She had a chance to be DDR level stupid good. In fact, the two of these together would have just run the entire show by now. But unfortunately, I mean, especially the units that we're coming out with, right? You start thinking about what Flan's buffs were, and look at them synergistically with the units that we've got out now. With Fire Flan, How crazy would her S1 defense break into Fireflan's S1 dual attack have been? Should have executed people, right? But unfortunately, it didn't happen, and she's just a bad unit. She is as hard to use as Lionheart Cermia, if not harder, and she really, really, really needs a buff. I'm not saying reinstate her buffs. I think her buffs before might have been too good, and that's the most infuriating part, is that people got them canceled because they said they were bad. I guess because they can't read. But she needs something more than just an EE. Hopefully she's on the next balance patch. Because, man, her skin's coming out, and it just feels bad to have a skin for an ML unit that we can't even really use in the game. And again, like I said, if you force the right gear, through gear, just about anything's possible. So if you're out there saying, well, I run Flan, it works great for me. Sure, I've got my best gear on her. Yeah, not competitively, and that gear's probably doing better on something else. Remnant Violet. We're still going to leave Ruele in the niche category. He is, after his buff, he went out of bad. He is still hard to pick, but he is still a really good unit to pick on 4-5 into certain situations. Can still win fights. You just have to be keenly aware of his failings, right? Don't let Ray put him to sleep. Don't let them pick an Uberous Tooth Amiki into him. There's certain things that just execute him, and if you dodge those things, if the enemy doesn't have those niche counters on their team, if you're aware of all those counters can play into it, Ruele can win you fights if they don't ban him. Requiem Roana was kind of part of the Zeo Ludwig Commander Pavel Cleave team. The difference is Roana still kind of has a place in the game as long as you have a handful of fast units. If you have got multiple fast units, most people do. I wouldn't call that a niche. But if you have multiple fast units and you can make sure one of your units is faster than your enemy's fastest unit, then Requiem Roana on the team is great for damage, resets, fantastic powerhouse unit. I'm going to set her right here beside Bologna. Ruele of Light. Holy smokes. Ruele of Light is on just about every single arena defense. She is meta tier for arena, but for RTA, I think she's only solid. She is infuriatingly difficult to fight, and people might say, no, she's meta. I don't think she is. There's enough counters to her that if you pick her early, people can drop those counters, and if you pick her late, she's just going to get banned. She's definitely a strong unit. I mean, she is the very definition of solid, but I don't think she's quite worthy of putting up in the meta tier yet. Meta tier across the board can all pretty much be first pick. And I don't think Ruele can be. Ballin Sazan used to be the number one anti-cleave unit in the game. Harsetti completely removed him from the game, but even with Harsetti gone, I don't think cleave is going to be making a huge comeback. Not the style of cleave that Ball works with. He is still pretty good, but pretty good is more of a niche pick situation. I don't know that he spams enough debuffs, and a lot of his debuffs are movement restricting, like sleep. Doesn't work against units like Mort. He needs a little something to be meta again. Right now, his niche is stopping Classic Cleave, and Classic Cleave is so hard to find anymore, I think it moves him down near the bottom of the niche tier. See Phantom Politis. Strongest unit in the game. Strongest unit in the game. With the big meta units recently relying on focus or fighting spirit, having somebody who can go first and cut can cut resources in half just by existing. People are like, oh, but you have to have the speed gear. She doesn't need speed gear if she just needs to exist to cut the resource reduction. She doesn't need to be 300 speed because we're in a meta that's slowed down a lot. She just needs to be the fastest unit on the team. And if you look at what the enemy drafts, people are like, well, what's the minimum speed for Sea Phantom? And the minimum speed for Sea Phantom is 5% faster than the fastest unit on the enemy team. Now, if the enemy picks first picks Zeo and Luna, well, duh, you're not going to pick Sea Phantom into that. I mean, unless you've got some giga freaking insane speed gear. But if the enemy picks Flan first, suddenly Sea Poly's back on the table, especially if they go like, I don't know, Flan Tywin. You've got some options. In PvE, a unit that dual attacks with the highest attack unit, a unit who can give rage to everybody on the team, so you can get great synergy with Inferno Kawazu in Guild Wars. There's a lot of uses for Sea Poly outside of RTA. Other thing about Sea Phantom Poly 2 is if you can only build a 270 speed one, 100% chance at the start of the battle and at the end of the turn. She's always stealthed, so you don't even need Guiding Light on her. So even if you can only build 270-ish speed, she's stealthed. They'll have to use an AoE to hit her. And we got a unit coming out who hates AoE and will punish you for doing it. Can you imagine running her and an AoE unit, and she's on, like, I don't know, spatiotemporal fan, so now your nuclear kill unit and your unit that buffs the entire team and pushes back the enemy are all stealth, and you've got a unit that punishes them for doing AoE, and they got to decide, do I take it in the ear from the unit who punishes me for doing AoE, or do I let the initiator and DPS unit be stealth the whole time? Holy crap, guys. Anybody thinks this unit isn't the #1 unit in the game right now, I don't know what to say to them. If you don't have Sea Phantom Poly, she's your headhunt pick, bar none. Don't let anybody tell you gotta have the gear to build her. It's nice, and it will let you take her into more places, but she's a strong unit, as long as you can get like 270 speed, right? And if you're talking about competitive RTA play, that shouldn't be hard, and if it is hard for you now, it won't be hard for you 6 months from now. Just start speed checking and build this unit. Silverblade Aramentha is a very, very solid unit. Much like Ruele, she's got to be picked into specific situations and she needs specific supporters, but if you can avoid immunity, Last Rider Corral, if you can avoid immunity and units that punish you for debuffs, holy crap, she runs people over. Solid and very, very fun unit to play, and if the enemy's not prepared to counter this, she's just going to run them over. Solitary of the Snow used to be niche, but now because Flan is so prevalent, oops, wrong button. I'm gonna slap her up here beside Bellona and put her right. Now I can't put Bellona not next to Roana for reasons. Very, very solid unit to use. A little bit harder to build, but if you're tired of getting run over by Flan, she's one of your best options against that. She's also an entire control unit built into one kit. An entire control team built into one kit. She stuns, she pushes back, she stealths, she does AoE hits, multiple hits, letting her benefit from artifacts like Fairy Tale for a Nightmare or Abyssal Crown. You can build her on damage. I've even seen her built on injury. You can just build her on speed to constantly spam the control. So, yeah. Very, very, very good unit. And now we've got Specimen Says. I was so excited with his buffs. I really thought it was going to be the age of Says, right? I really thought I was going to use him everywhere, but he is niche because it's just tough to set up in a world of immunities, a world of cleanses. If you can get the right team put together for Spez, it's great. Otherwise, he needs so much setup to get him to work, and in RTA, it's rare that somebody will let you have that much setup without just banning the Says. Used to be the #1 pick. Used to be the top of every tier list. But our queen who wants you to kiss her feet has fallen quite a bit. She is very, very, very niche in RTA. Or sorry, very, very niche. Yeah, very niche in RTA. She still can be picked in RTA. There are still certain situations where you reach for her, but they're about as common as the certain situations where you reach for APOC Ravi. They're just very, very few and far between. Where she is S tier is in Abyss. In Abyss, she clears everything. In early Nightmare Raid, she clears everything. In early Labyrinth, she clears everything. She can be used in a ton of PvE. She's still one of the goddesses of PvE, but in RTA, she's kind of a last pick. She's right here with APOC Ravi in the niche pick category, because it's just very situational where you will reach for her and not a whole host of other options. Even after her EE, we thought her EE would really up her usage, but not so much. Spirit Eye Celine is likewise kind of a niche pick. Hell, you know what? She might even be bad. Has anybody been successful with Spirit Eye Celine lately? Because I haven't. She rose to the top and then dropped again. If your opponent drafts like a doofus and Spirit Eye Celine gets through, you can run him over with that. But I don't want to say, oh, she's niche. Her niche is your opponent's a moron. That's not a niche, right? Your opponent's a moron is not a niche. That's just a bad unit, guys. She needs a buff badly. Sylvan Sage Vivian's the very definition of solid units. The only thing keeping Sylvian, I think, out of meta is the Faithless Lidica issue. She is incredibly difficult to build. She is probably in the top 10 hardest units to build in the game. She takes an artifact that you have to spend 900 Sky Stones to get out of the Book of Memories. You need to put her on a lifesteal set, which makes it hard to build gear on her. But if you can build a good one, then she can do things. She is, she's a focus unit, so she's run over by C-Poly. But she is a DPS unit that you can choose to do single target or AoE on a burn. She can heal the entire team up. She doesn't suffer from debuffs as long as she has focus. Very, very strong unit. Really nice to stick in the last pick. What's the name of the artifact? It's Chatty. Top model Lilica, her niche is you have insane speed gear. If you have insane speed gear, you can actually do a lot of really good things with top model Lilica. If you don't have that speed gear, it's tougher to do the things you need top model Lilica to do. And it's not just speed gear, right? It's speed damage gear. Speed DPS gear is one of the more difficult ones to put together, and her speed is so low that getting speed damage gear on her, it's like building a real Ran. This is a top 1%er unit, and I'm going to sit her right here beside Faithless Lidica, because much like Faithless Lidica, 99% of the people in the game don't have the gear to make a good top model Lilica, and the 1% that can build her aren't looking at tier lists. So that's her niche. Her niche is be a 1%er, and then you can build these units. Twisted Idol on Charon is just bad. I know. There's going to be some people in chat. There's going to be some people in the comment section. No, his buffs made him good now. His damage fix is great. You just aren't playing him right. I've yet to see it. I've yet to see it. I think he's one of these units that... Remember, the bad category, guys, the bad category... I'm going to move her up a little bit. The bad category is if you just love this unit and you put the most end gear on it and build an entire team around its functionality, you can probably make this unit work. I'm not saying these units are unplayable. I'm just saying that the gear it would take and the organization it would take to make these units playable, you may as well slap that gear on some other units and be stronger overall in the game. Shu, in a world where everything is an injury unit, having a unit, in a world where everything is an HP scaler, having an injury unit who can detonate injury is insane. Shu is near the top of the solid tier for me. I use this unit all the time. Actually use her more than Ruele and Conqueror Lilias, but that's just me. Zio. Fuck it, I'm putting him up there. Unit that guarantees gets to go first. Yeah. For Arena, for Guild Wars, for RTA where the enemy tries to run fast, no. No, guys. He is now and forever will be meta. The Emperor gets the top tier placement, but he's definitely at the very back line because I think we've got some new answers. Harsetti's not going to be nearly as scary as she used to be, but you want to initiate a Ludwig cleave, you need Zio. You want to deal with a Harsetti, you need Zio. You got somebody who's dropping a real Ran on your ass, you need Zio. Somebody picks a C Phantom Politis, well, you're going to lose. But you know what? Zio is still really, really good in making sure the opponent doesn't get to go first, letting you bridge into cleaves or high aggro. I've even seen some slower Zeos built nuclear damage on lifesteal, and that can be fun too. So yeah, there we go. And on the complete opposite end of the spectrum from Zeo is the strongest unit in the game. I'm kidding. This unit is worse than Ainz Ulgon. I'm just dropping it right there, right? If Ainz was on the tier list, Operator Sigurd would still be at the very bottom of bad. That's how bad Operator Sigurd is. Ainz, at least you can go in and cheese Nightmare Raid with Ainz. That means somewhere in the game, Ainz does something. Operator Sigurd does nothing. Unlike Fallen Cecilia, it's not that other people do it better, it's that she's bad at her job. If Operator Sigurd went and worked for Dairy Queen, she would get fired for incompetence by not being able to make the little Q on the top of the ice cream cone. Operator Sigurd needs more than a buff. Operator Sigurd needs an entire kit rework. Her entire niche is to nuclear destroy anything with a barrier, and you know what? Senya pops that barrier up, and you drop Operator Sigurd into it, and you know what happens? Senya lives and kills Operator Sigurd. It's that bad. This unit is god-awful. If you pulled her, she's waifu, put her at your table and wait. In my opinion, this is the most likely unit to see on a balance patch very soon, because even Closer Charles goes, hey, you know what? You may call me Loser Charles, but at least I'm not Operator Sigurd. So, yeah. Sorry if I roasted your waifu, guys. OpSig really, really needs some love. Really, God, Smilegate, please buff this unit. So there you go. There is my Headhunt tier list updated for post-meta. We're not getting a bounce patch today. We could possibly see the bounce patch announcement next Friday. If you want to save and you want to wait, you want to play it smart, you want to go in with your eyes wide open to make sure that none of these change, because a lot changed with the last bounce patch. You want to make sure that you pick the unit that's going to be best, then definitely wait until next Friday. If the bounce patch doesn't happen next Friday, we're into the holidays. And I don't think we're going to see a bounce patch in 2025. That's just what my gut's telling me. Yeah, I'm kind of with Sue on this one, that Laika maybe could move down and Elena could move up. So yeah, let me know. Let me know in the comment section. Are you locking it in now? Are you saying I can't wait any longer? Are you saying, hey, no matter what happens on the bounce patch, Zeo, C-Poly, you know, these units are never going to not be meta, so I'm locking it in? Or are you going to hedge your bets, play it smart, and give it 7 more days to see if Smilegate comes through with a bounce patch announcement? Let me know. The rest of you, I hope you get what you want. I hope the headhunt is going well for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take care, Epic 7.